Tyler Reddick has done something in 2026 that almost no driver in the history of this sport has ever done. 5 wins in 9 races, a 105-point championship lead. The first driver in NASCAR Cup Series history to win the opening 3 races of a season. Numbers that belong next to the all-time greats. And yet the story surrounding 23SI racing right now has almost nothing to do with celebrating, and everything to do with suspicion, sealed legal documents, a criminal charge, and a question nobody is asking loudly enough. Is Tyler Reddick actually staying at 23SI long term? Let's start where the story deserves to start, on the racetrack, because what Reddick has done in 2026 is genuinely historically remarkable. The last driver to win 5 races in the first 9 starts of a season was Dale Earnhardt in 1987. That is not a minor footnote. Earnhardt went on to win 6 more races that year while claiming the 3rd of his 7 championships. The wins Reddick has collected span every track type: the Daytona 500, Atlanta, COTA on a road course, Darlington, and Kansas. That road course win matters because it shuts down the easiest dismissal, that he got lucky on superspeedways. The Darlington win deserves its own moment. Reddick's car lost its cooling system entirely in brutal heat conditions, and he still crossed the finish line 6 full seconds ahead of Brad Keselowski. A 6-second gap in modern NASCAR is almost unheard of. At Kansas, he was not even the best car on the day. He had to chase down his own team owner, Denny Hamlin, during the final green flag run, scraped the wall, nearly lost the lead, and then won in overtime on the final lap. As his spotter Nick Payne put it, back against the wall, he's probably the guy you want in the seat. The numbers across 9 races tell the full story. 6 top 5s, 7 top 10s, 0 DNFs, and a worst finish of 15th. He has been on the lead lap in every single race. Kevin Harvick explained the foundation of it plainly. You can't beat fast cars, and Tyler Reddick has stepped up to be able to deliver on those fast cars. Now, the confidence this team has. Confidence and speed are hard to beat. Kyle Petty called it breathtaking, noting that Toyota clearly has the hot hand right now. Michael Jordan watched his 5th win from pit road at Kansas and said simply, he is on a heater, for sure, and all you can do is just let him go. Get out of his way. The transformation from 2025 to 2026 is what makes this story complicated. 23XI Racing combined for just 1 win across 3 drivers in the entire 2025 season. That was Bubba Wallace's victory at the Brickyard 400. Reddick went completely winless. The team was in the middle of a brutal legal fight with NASCAR, racing without charters for much of the year, dealing with reduced prize money and genuine uncertainty about the organization's future. Now they have 5 wins in 9 races, so what changed? In October 2024, 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports filed a federal antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR over the charter agreement system. The court dispute came down to 4 things: permanent charter status, revenue splits from the television deal, governance rights, and restrictions on competing in other series. 23XI refused to sign the 2025 charter agreement because it contained a clause releasing NASCAR of legal claims, which would have forced them to drop the lawsuit. What followed was 9 days of federal trial beginning December 1, 2025, in a North Carolina courtroom. The testimony was extraordinary. Denny Hamlin, Michael Jordan, Heather Gibbs of Joe Gibbs Racing, NASCAR Chairman Jim France, Commissioner Steve Phelps, and Richard Childress all took the stand. Internal NASCAR text messages were revealed. NASCAR President Steve O'Donnell had described a proposed charter draft as close to a comfortable 1996 F. The teams: dictatorship, motorsport, redneck, southern, tiny sport. Judge Kenneth Bell had already ruled before trial that NASCAR holds monopoly power in the market of premier stock car racing. On December 11, 2025, on the 9th day of the trial, a settlement was announced. The jury was dismissed. Judge Bell said from the bench, "I believe this is great for NASCAR, great for the future of NASCAR, great for the entity of NASCAR, great for the teams, and ultimately great for the fans." The joint statement confirmed that 23XI and Front Row would receive a form of evergreen charters, effectively permanent, a financial payout, and a seat at the governance table. And then came the critical line: the financial terms of the settlement are confidential and will not be released. That sealed settlement is the fuel for everything that has followed. Steve Loletta, 23XI's team president, pointed to fundamentals when asked about the performance leap. Our pit crews have taken a big step forward. Everybody worked really hard in the offseason to refine our processes and our communication. Harvick offered a structural explanation. 23SI just has less going on this year. I think that when you have that stability of everything that's going on, and Toyota has the best car right now. Reddick himself described the car improvement as night and day. The Reddick community flagged another angle. Permanent charters mean investor confidence. Investor confidence means more resources, and more resources translate directly into better cars. It is a logical chain, but it is not confirmed. What is confirmed is that the settlement happened, the terms are sealed, and the team immediately became the most dominant force in the sport. Chase Elliott's fan base is one of the largest and most organized in NASCAR, and they started asking a straightforward question. How does a team go from one combined win across 3 drivers in 2025 to 5 wins in 9 races in 2026? The answer they kept pointing to was the settlement. The theories circulating online fell into a few categories. The first is that the settlement contained hidden competitive advantages embedded somewhere in the agreement that nobody is discussing openly. The second is that NASCAR granted 23XI some form of preferential treatment. The third is broader, that Toyota and 23XI are cheating outright. That third theory notably was pushed back against by Chevrolet fans themselves. As one widely shared post put it, Chevy has an entirely new body. Y'all gotta do better. Reddick addressed the noise directly at a Talladega media session before the Jack Links 500. His response was measured. It is weird to be in this spot, I will say that. There's certainly a lot of noise out there, a lot of speculations, but for me, it's easy to not get caught up in it, because we know what we're doing. We know how we're doing it when we've been successful with it. He added, I remember how I felt all of last year. I know how my team felt about last year, and so we don't want to go back to not winning. The honest assessment is this. No evidence of preferential treatment has been confirmed. Legitimate explanations for the performance jump exist. Organizational stability post-settlement, off-season investment in pit crews and processes, Toyota having the strongest package in the field, and a driver responding to a painful winless season with extraordinary focus. But NASCAR now faces a credibility challenge regardless of whether 23XI is entirely clean. A sealed financial settlement with the sport's most dominant team, with no public transparency, creates a perception problem the sanctioning body cannot simply dismiss. The Jimmy Johnson parallel is worth noting here. Johnson dominated NASCAR for years and faced cheating accusations throughout his entire dynasty at Hendrick Motorsports. His legacy ultimately survived, but the noise never fully stopped, even after the dominance ended. Reddick is walking into that same dynamic, and he is only 9 races into it. There is a story inside the 23SI story that actually provides real context for the cheating debate. Bubba Wallace is driving the same equipment on the same team with the same resources. Through 9 races, he sits 7th in the standings with 1 top 5 and 5 top 10s. 2 terrible finishes, 34th at Darlington and 36th at Martinsville after a wreck of his own making, have pulled his averages down. Without those 2 races, his season looks very similar to Reddick's in terms of pace and execution. When asked about his teammates' dominance by Steve Letarte, Wallace was candid. Incredible to see how we came off last year. Obviously just the Brickyard 400, not downplaying that at all, but Reddick went winless. And then all of a sudden it's like, who lit a fire under his ass? I think he took going winless to heart. I did it for 3 years. It's just hard, man. This sport is so hard, and I think the conversations that we had with leadership and just getting the preseason meetings kicked off just kind of lit a fire in everybody. Wallace also said, I've had no man, why him? None of that. It's just like, man, when is it our turn? The significance of Wallace's competitiveness is this. If 23XI's advantage were purely artificial or structural, it would almost certainly be showing up in his results more consistently. The fact that Reddick is the one converting, while Wallace is close, but not winning points toward driver execution and confidence as the primary variable, not some hidden organizational advantage baked into a settlement agreement. Then came May 23, 2026, hours before the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Ivana Howell, 35, a senior account manager at 23XI Racing, was arrested and charged with assault with a deadly weapon inflicting serious injury. According to Cabarrus County court records, Judge Matthew Black found probable cause that Howell intentionally struck a 77-year-old man with a golf cart at the track. She was released after posting a $125,000 bond. Her court date is scheduled for June 16. NASCAR listed Howell on its weekly penalty report with an indefinite suspension for a behavioral violation under Section 4.4a. Who is Ivana Howell? She was one of 23XI Racing's original employees, joining the team in 2021. She was promoted in January 2024 to Senior Account Manager, where she managed the team's major sponsorship relationships. Her background included roles with the Charlotte Hornets, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Feld Entertainment, along with 2 master's degrees. This was not a peripheral team member. This was someone central to the organization's commercial operations, essentially the face of 23XI's sponsor partnerships. Corporate sponsors do not simply invest in race wins. They invest in brand image, organizational reputation, and long-term stability. 23XI is already operating under a public microscope following the lawsuit and the performance debate. A felony charge involving a senior employee who manages sponsor relationships creates a very specific kind of concern in boardrooms. Sponsor contracts contain exit clauses, and brand managers ask questions. Those questions compound when the headlines keep coming. With the June 16 court date approaching, there is likely more coverage ahead for the team, regardless of the outcome. Tyler Reddick is 30 years old, in the prime of his career, putting together a season for the history books. But he has never once said publicly that he will be at 23XI for the long haul. At Talladega, he talked about the noise, talked about winning, talked about the team's hunger. He did not talk about his future with the organization. If the sponsor base begins showing instability in the wake of the Howell incident, if the conspiracy headlines continue drowning out the championship narrative, and if the June 16 court date generates further damaging coverage, the calculations surround Reddick's future at this team become more complicated than his lap times would ever suggest. Hendrick Motorsports is one of the most stable clean image operations in NASCAR. Other blue chip organizations exist. Reddick has options, and his silence on long-term commitment is quiet, but it is not nothing. Reddick said before the season, "I remember how I felt all of last year. I know how my team felt. We don't want to go back to not winning." That quote reveals genuine emotional stakes. The question is whether the path back to not winning could come from off-track chaos rather than anything that happens on the racetrack. Speed means nothing if the foundation underneath it starts to crack. Tyler Reddick is winning every race. Sponsors are watching June 16 very carefully, and Reddick himself keeps saying they are still finding more speed, but has never once said he is going anywhere long-term. Sometimes the most dangerous place to be is exactly where everyone is watching you.